Welcome back to JM Football. My name is Justin Penik. Dalton Feely is right beside me. Today's video and what we're going to be doing every single Tuesday is Dalton Feely and I will be releasing a power rankings list, and this video is meant to expand upon that list on why we have teams ranked where they're at.
100%. Listen, there's got to be context to why we have these teams listed here. We're not just placing them just for funsies. You know, there's reasons to our madness, and so this is where we're going to talk about why we have teams listed.
Now, today is a very unique day where typically we won't normally be reacting to like a Monday Night Football game.
Right.
But something happened last night that is horrible. Like something horrible happened last night, especially, you know, we have a lot of Jets fans here at the Jomboy media office. We don't know the official word on Aaron Rodgers, but I'm expecting him to be out for the year.
Yeah, torn Achilles, you're probably going to be out for the year. When I first saw the injury, I'm like, oh my gosh, hopefully, you know, that's just a high ankle. Yeah. Obviously, it seems not official, of course, that it's going to be a torn Achilles, and that is just a brutal injury to have and to come back from, too. Yeah,
and just all the hype and all the excitement, and to have a franchise that, you know, they've had good teams over the last 20 years. They've had good teams, but the one thing that they have been missing is the quarterback. And when the Jets have to hang their hat on Ryan Fitzpatrick's 2015 season and call that the best quarterback season like in franchise history. You know, Aaron Rodgers would have, regardless of whether he was elite or whether he was just good or whether he was just average, he wasn't going to be bad.
He was their biggest improvement. Like, this is why teams, some people had them even in AFC Championship games, even the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So this is just really devastating for them. It's devastating for the NFL.
I mean, especially I think they have like 5 primetime games.
Yeah.
This is, I hate to say it, this is kind of like the Russell Wilson effect all over again, where they had Denver primetime last year and they weren't good. And I don't think the Jets are going to be bad now without Aaron Rodgers, but it's a huge hit.
Hence why they made the move. Hence why they made the move to get Aaron Rodgers, because they were competing and almost made the playoffs last year, and now it's just, man, you're back to square one. I do think they are going to do something at quarterback, though, because
they have to.
Keeping Zach Wilson around was already funky enough when you had players wearing Mike White shirts last year. Zach Wilson was a guy that you drafted in the first round. Still the same regime, but they kind of don't like him. So very weird situation in New York, especially, I mean, 4 plays in, Aaron Rodgers goes down. I mean, that's just
doesn't
brutal.
complete a pass. Crazy.
No, doesn't even complete a pass. So how we're actually going to start every single week is we're going to do winners and losers. So Dalton, you have this week's winner.
My winner is the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, I think going into week 1, I did not foresee the Rams going into Seattle and just kicking their butts. You know, Stafford throws for 334 yards, and that's without Cooper Kupp, who is a top 5, top 3 wide receiver when fully healthy, which is madness, you know, doing that without him. And Tutu Atwell, 119 yards. Puka Nacua. Hope I said that right.
Oh, you said it right.
I am the worst with names.
5th round rookie at a BYU.
Also 119 yards and a great performance. The Rams have won 9 of their last 13 games against Seattle. And want to give a quick shout out to their defense. Russ Yeast, Byron Young, and Jordan Fuller, 100% snaps on that defense. Huge performances for that Rams upset win.
My big loser of the week is my New York Football Giants.
I was hoping you wouldn't say that, but I did expect that.
I mean, when you lose 40-0 on primetime, and I mean, really, you could say the Jets are the big loser.
I mean, they won.
They won the game.
they won, but they lost.
But I am going to say the New York Football Giants, even though, you know, the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers. When you lose to a divisional opponent, national television, 40-0, when you had the optimism and the excitement, and being at home, the optimism, the excitement of the upgrades that the Giants did make, and hoping that, you know, your right tackle and Evan Neal, the 7th overall pick of last year's draft, you're hoping that he takes a step up, and they all just took a huge step backwards. So I don't think we really need much of an explanation after that. Giants, biggest 100%. Loser of the week. Dalton Feely. We have our power rankings broken up into tiers.
Yeah, I think tiers are the best way. Like, we just lump teams together. It's like these are very similar vibes, and based on how they've played or what we're expecting or what they've done, rosters built, best way to organize all 32 teams.
So tell us about the tiers.
So we're going to start bottom. You know, started from the bottom. Now we're here. Bottom tier. Our last year, it's called Caleb Williamsville. So these are the teams that we're expecting to be competing for the number 1 overall pick. Doesn't mean they would take Caleb Williams, but they're going to be more towards the back of the pack.
Correct.
Next one, if you would like to share above Caleb Williamsville.
Thank you, next. Kind of just teams that are there.
Shout out Ariana Grande.
Mid, meh, muh is the next tier.
Yeah, teams, could be good, could also be really bad. We just really don't know yet. They're kind of meh. They're just kind of there right now.
What's the next tier?
Playoffs, why not? Teams that, could make the playoffs, probably should make the playoffs, but depends on certain situations that could take place. Playoffs, you better be there. Like, these are teams that all right, let's get it done. We're expecting you to be there. You're a good team. Just prove it now. And then the last year,
Lombardi land.
Lombardi
or bust.
Right. Go win it.
So let's start off with Caleb Williamsville.
Caleb's Williamsville. Yep. 32 Arizona Cardinals, 31 Houston Texans, 30 Carolina Panthers, and 29 the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
We got 4 teams in that bottom tier right now. There's one team I really want to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And that's the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young's debut. Not super sharp compared to the other two, rookie quarterbacks in Stroud and Richardson. Clearly had the lowest passer rating of the 3 at 48.8 compared to Stroud being in 78 range and Richardson at 79 flat. Young, just a really odd performance based on the 2 interceptions. Something he really didn't do is those turnover-worthy plays. He got baited by Jesse Bates twice in that game. And now, listen, when you're your first overall quarterback, there's those high expectations, right? But the last 15 quarterbacks that to be picked number 1 overall, they haven't won. They haven't won week 1.
Right.
They're 0-14-1. The expectations should have been tampered, but still, losing to Atlanta divisional game was tough. Falcons putting up 17 points on Carolina turnovers between the 2 picks by Young, the Miles Sanders fumble. That's going to win you ball games if you're the Atlanta Falcons. If you're causing turnovers and scoring on them, and that's going to lose you games if you're Carolina. Brian Burns still looks like a dog.
Oh, my gosh.
Sack and a half. Wasn't sure if he was going to play.
Killed the right tackle.
Yeah, he was going to be potentially sitting out for that new contract. And then lastly, J.C. Horn going down. That's another big thing I want to talk about. I had him in my JML team, my preseason, my predictions. Yeah. He's such a good player when he's on the field.
Yeah.
Problem is he can't stay on the field. And again, hamstring injury, did not return versus Atlanta. You hate to see it. Hopefully he can get back soon. Next 3 games for Carolina to try and turn around. You're in New Orleans. You're facing New Orleans at home. You got Seattle, and Minnesota. Win a game or 2, you're out of Caleb Williamsville.
Win a game or 2, that's going to be the challenge. That roster is not very good for Carolina, and even seeing them in the preseason where they played a lot of their starters against my Giants, it's just, man,
right.
That old line didn't really hold up. What are the weapons they got going on over there? So it's not looking too good in Carolina. So we have the thank you next tier. Is there anybody that you want to highlight here? Your Indianapolis Colts are at 28, Anthony Richardson's debut.
Yeah, we got the Colts at 28. They're the bottom team on this tier, but not in the bottom tier, which is good. Colts losing 31-21 versus Jacksonville. Now, listen, I'm going to wear my Colts on my sleeve. I am a Colts fan.
It's still a respectable game.
And they were in it. Like,
they were in it.
It was a competitive game until the 4th quarter when Jacksonville came back and overtook Indianapolis. I'm actually pretty proud of how the Colts performed. I did expect them to get blown out at home versus Jacksonville. It's week 1 has been a big issue for Indy. They haven't won week 1 since 2013. In perspective, I had just started my freshman year of high school the last time the Colts won a week 1. So they've always been horrendous on week 1. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson real quick. 3rd youngest starting quarterback to start an NFL opener in NFL history, in week 1, which is very impressive. Threw for 223 yards, had a touchdown, had pick, 40 rushing yards, rushing touchdown. Very serviceable. I was surprised with how well he played. Couple decisions that didn't love. One was that interception where he got late in the game, which helped turn the game around for Jacksonville. But he played, I think, the best of the 3 rookie quarterbacks. I think he played very solid. For someone who was considered raw, he didn't look super raw week 1, which is a great sign for Indianapolis. Next 3 games, Indy. You got at Houston versus Stroud. So rookie on rookie crime. At Baltimore versus LA. They can win week 2. And if they win week 2, maybe they jump a spot or 2. Let's see.
For sure.
That roster is scary, though.
For sure. You have the Commanders above them, the Titans at 26, Bucks at 25, Broncos at 24. Man, I'll just say this quick. Ryan Tannehill's arm looked shot. I mean, that was not a very good opening game for those Tennessee Titans. And, you had some people being like, well, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are maybe being a little overhyped. The Titans have a good defense, and they still have good coaching every single year. If that offense can somewhat look a little competent, and even, say what you want about DeAndre Hopkins being a little washed, DeAndre Hopkins is an upgrade over Robert Woods as wide receiver 1.
Oh, for sure.
So Ryan Tannehill just did not look good week 1. So it may only go downhill from the Tennessee Titans for there. But let's talk about the Bucks for a hot sec.
Let's do it.
Played a good game. And Todd Bowles, he's going to run a good defense. And always when it's a Todd Bowles, when Todd Bowles is that head coach and maybe Tom Brady's not your quarterback, that the offense is going to be a question. And they played the Minnesota Vikings, who the Minnesota Vikings have not fallen. They were in our mid-meh tier.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of hate for it. Guess who was right?
For now, week 1, we're looking good. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, that was a weird game. I hate to say this to Bucs fans. I do personally think Minnesota lost that game rather than Tampa won that game.
That's fair.
Tampa didn't make many mistakes. They didn't turn the ball over. They forced 3 turnovers from Minnesota, and if you win a turnover battle by 3, you're probably gonna win that game.
Yeah, and even if you look at I like looking at EPA tiers. So Tampa Bay, they're basically they're average defense EPA per play week 1. Offense, they were average EPA per play week 1. And Baker Mayfield was basically average on a CPOE and EPA per play composite. For a team that, really did control the game, you wouldn't think that they would be average. You would think that maybe they would be above average. So I think that goes to your point that the Vikings lost the game.
Yeah.
Any other team do you want to talk about the mid-meh tier? Because we have the Raiders at 23, Falcons at 22, which they're going to be a team that I want to talk about just throughout the NFL season, that they run the ball more than they throw it, and they are one of the few teams in the NFL that actually runs it more efficiently than throws it.
Art Smith.
We talked about 21 Rams, how they're our biggest winners. They jumped, I think, one of the highest in our power rankings this week. Vikings at 20, Patriots at 19, Steelers at 18.
Quickly want to touch on the Steelers. I'm a guy that will fall on his sword if he makes a mistake. I did have an upset alert for Pittsburgh to beat San Fran in Pittsburgh. Not even close.
Right.
Not even close. Tip the cap to Brock Purdy and the San Fran Niners for just kicking butt in Pittsburgh. Just wanted to say, give up 5 sacks. That Niners defense still proving it's true. Playing a little game real quick. Do you know who led the Niners in sacks week 1 by any chance? It's an interesting one.
It wasn't Bosa. It was an interior guy, right?
Could have been. No hints here.
I don't know.
Drake Jackson.
Yeah.
The second-year man, Drake Jackson, had 3 of them. They caused 2 interceptions. I mean, very impressive. Very impressive performance by the Niners. Very disappointed by the Steelers. TJ Watt had 3 sacks. Very impressive. He ties James Harrison's franchise record of 80.5 sacks for Steelers history. One thing to concern injuries-wise, Cam Hayward, Deontay Johnson, and Chuck Okafor. All 3 of those guys, big contributors going down in that game. Deontay Johnson rumored to be out for multiple weeks. Still waiting. Not good. Yeah, so that's not great.
Deontay Johnson was that guy on that Steelers offense that you're such a good route runner that if now we're starting, all right, Kenny Pickett, second year, we're going to start to throw the ball more. We're going to get more diverse on offense. Deontay Johnson was a huge part of that because of how good of a route runner he is. And if he's out for a few weeks, man, does that put the Steelers back a little bit. Huge. And not even being competitive in the game with the 49ers. It's another team. It's we have actually our Steelers, and then if we want to move to the playoffs, why not tier? We have the Steelers and the Giants. Steelers 18, Giants 17. We have them right next to each other.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 teams that, hey, you have tough opponents this week. Maybe you're not going to win that game, but you're expected to at least be competitive in that game. We talked about our Giants as our biggest losers before, but here's the rest of the teams in the playoffs. Why not tier? We have Giants at 17, Seahawks 16, Packers 15, Jets fall to 14, Browns 13, Saints 12.
And now, Penik, is there anyone that you want to talk about in this tier? Is there one team that stands out? You're like, that's very interesting week 1, or something that you're worried about?
I'd say the Packers.
Packers.
Is it Jordan Love and the Packers taking it to the Bears a reflection on the Packers, or is it a reflection on the Chicago Bears?
Right. Definitely could be both. I don't want to be that guy in the middle, but it was a very impressive performance. Jordan Love looked pretty solid too. Though throwing for 3 touchdowns. Yeah. Jones has 2 total touchdowns, gets hurt, but they looked very solid in that game.
Personnel grouping frequency was pretty interesting for the Packers too. I don't have all the numbers, but just watching some of the plays from that game, how they were utilizing their 2 tight end sets, like ultra pistol packages with 2 tight ends kind of in the backfield. Let's use these big tight ends as blockers, and and even if you want to run play action off of that, and the Packers have invested capital into their tight end room, so it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves over the year, making the offense simple for Jordan Love, but also we could find, and we may start to say, if Jordan Love is a success this year in the NFL, we may start to come to the conclusion that it is better to sit rookie QBs and for them to sit at least 1 year, not multiple years like Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers did back in his day, but you saw it with Mahomes. He sat for a year, and a lot of these quarterbacks that do take a year to sit and learn and really kind of get life in the NFL before you get playing on the field. It's worked out for them. So we'll see how the Packers evolved. Aaron Jones looked really good, had a hamstring injury. I think he'll be all right, and he'll kind of come back. Browns are a team that I don't love, and I don't believe in their blowout victory over the Bengals. I still think Deshaun Watson didn't look that great. I think Deshaun Watson is going to be more like the final 6 games of last year than the first however many years he was in Houston.
For sure. I will say with the Browns, I give them credit. That defense did look, ferocious.
It was also pouring in that game.
Right. That's a huge thing for quarterback play. Like Burrow and Watson both didn't look good, but the weather was just horrendous out there.
Yeah.
But that Browns defense kind of looks legit. I mean, that front four is really good. You have a potential defensive player of the year candidate every year in Myles Garrett.
Did you see him dancing?
He was playing a different sport. Basketball crossover. That was sick.
There was before he was lined up in the A gap, and I don't know what he was doing, if he was dancing or he was doing whatever, and then he just gets the ball snapped, gets a sack. It's like, there's like very few people in the NFL that could do that. Anybody else you want to touch on? Saints had, again, another good defense, but an offense that maybe looked a little shaky. And is Derek Carr going to be the Derek Carr that we saw last year, or Derek Carr that we saw towards the earlier parts of his career? That, again, another QB question.
100%. And that Saints defense looked really good versus a very bad Tennessee offense. No offense to my Titans guys out there. But one team I did want to talk about, like briefly, one stat I had, the Seahawks touched about them with the Rams and the Seahawks, for that game. But Geno Smith, man, you're putting up under 12 yards in the second half of a game. When you're losing at home, you don't cross midfield. You have 1 first down. That's scary. His 4.3 yards per attempt per pass week 1, lowest as a starter since week 8 of 2014.
Wow.
We're almost a decade ago for Geno Smith playing that bad as a starter. So they got to bounce back. I do expect them to, but it was just a really weird performance from Seattle.
Yeah. Man, Seahawks, Giants, Saints. I mean, those three teams that maybe you can even argue that all those teams can kind of interchange with each other, but offenses week 1 not looking too hot. Saints did walk away with the victory. All right, so playoffs. You better be there. So at 11, we have the Chargers, who did lose, but it was a good scoring fest against the Miami Dolphins.
Right.
We have the Ravens at 10, Lions at 9. Dalton, Justin, the Lions were too high. We had them at 10 last week. Yeah. They only go up 1 spot because we already had them up there, Pop.
And they should go up. They beat Kansas City on the road, week 1, opening night.
But we already had them up there.
Just 1 spot up, a little bump.
And Jaguars are at 8.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Jaguars? Because you were a big guy Jaguars preseason.
Yeah, I mean, Jaguars, I didn't really fully lock into the game because they were playing the Colts, but I mean, sorry. But Calvin Ridley looks good. Tank Bigsby had a touchdown. He had a fumble as well. I think Trevor Lawrence has a good shot at winning MVP. Like, if you actually want to, maybe make some money and put like a smart little investment in for on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. This isn't sponsored.
Wow.
$5 to win 80 as of last week. Wow. So I did it.
Okay.
So Calvin Ridley is going to change things over there in Jacksonville. They took care of business week 1.
Yep.
And they're that last team that we have that are, Lombardi land. They're poking. They're
there. They could get into Lombardi land. Just a couple more wins, prove us, we're legit. That defense still a little shaky on that side of the ball. But that offense, like you said, T-Law, if T-Law's playing quarterback, they got a shot of winning any game.
All right. Ravens debuted a new offense with a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it was a battle of the new play callers. Todd Monken taking on head coach DeMeco Ryans. Mm-hmm. That's always a fun one. If you're talking those X's and O's, Todd Monken, big 11 personnel guy, likes to go quick. DeMeco Ryans obviously sending pressure, having that four-man rush, getting to the quarterback. Fun battle. Obviously, Baltimore comes through. But again, there are certain teams that have like these traits about them that they can't shake. Like the Jets are cursed. No offense. You got the Jets who are cursed. You got the Ravens that always get hurt, and it happened again this week. Yep. And you have the Chargers that just never win close games against a good opponent. Yep. It's the weirdest thing. Ravens lose Marcus Williams, Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Lindenbaum, J.K. Dobbins. He also tore his Achilles. Lots of guys that went down for Baltimore, and this happened last year too. So Lamar didn't look great. They win that game 25-9 at home versus Houston. A little worried about them. They're still a good team, Lamar's got to take that step up from week 1, but they should be fine. A little scared.
Lamar looked a little reckless. Odell Beckham Jr. in his debut only has 2 catches. Zay Flowers did look really good. Mark Andrews was already hurt and didn't play.
Didn't even play.
If there's a game that maybe you want to shake off some week 1 rust, it's against the Houston Texans. So that's like the positive part for the Ravens. The Ravens are also a team that like they will play nasty games against bad teams. And now this is in years past where they were like run first, run heavy.
Sure.
And that's why they would kind of keep kind of bad teams. I remember week 1 last year against the Jets. Like the Jets were kind of in
there.
it.
They were lingering.
They were like there, but you were watching the game and it was like, well, the Ravens were going to win that game. And, and I'm sure it was the same thing this past weekend. So, all right, now we're going to Lombardi land. Last tier, we have the Bengals at 7. They fall a little bit, but not concerned about the Bengals. Dolphins at 6. Bills at 5 fall. But again, I'm not too concerned. There's a conversation we had about the Bills. 49ers at 4. 3 Cowboys. 2 Eagles. Chiefs are still at 1.
Really quick, I do want to ask this. I know the Chiefs, people are going to be like, why are they number 1? They lost week 1. Rah. I know. It's the Chiefs.
I would have put the Eagles at 1.
We're not moving them.
They
didn't look good, but that's a different conversation. I wanted to ask, Bills and Bengals and Chiefs all 3 lose. Not really the Chiefs, but Bills and Bengals, which team are you more concerned about?
I'm more concerned about the Bills, but I'm also not too concerned about the Bills.
1 through 10, how concerned are the Bills?
Now, again, so we're expecting the Bills to be in Lombardi land and Super Bowl or bust.
Yep.
I think that there's more teams ahead of them in this tier. Like the Chiefs are ahead of them, yes. I think people would freak out if we had the Dolphins ahead of the Bills, but I do think the Dolphins are ahead of them.
Sure.
And I do think the Bengals are ahead of. I think the Bills have the 4th best shot at getting to a Super Bowl in the AFC, which is not what a lot of fans of Buffalo are saying.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird last night. I think one thing Buffalo's got to change, Ken Dorsey's got to change it offensively. They got to go a little bit with more pace. Allen, towards the end of the game, when that last drive to tie it up at 16 with the Tyler Bass doink, they were going hurry up because that's what it was a situational drive. They had to go hurry up with the clock situation. And Allen looked the best, I think, the best he did all night. I'm wondering if they use that more on their offense. A little hurry up, a little tempo, get Allen going. A little concerned. 20 yards down the field, he threw 2 picks. Jordan Whitehead with 3 picks on him on the night.
Now, here's the thing.
Wild.
The Jets are a defense that they're going to rush 4 or 5, and they're not going to let you throw the ball down the field. And that's why Josh Allen has struggled really, really so much. Josh Allen finished 2 for 7 for 41 yards and 3 interceptions on passes, over 15 air yards on Monday Night Football. Now, Allen did find success going underneath, 27 for 32 for 195 yards and a touchdown, and a plus 10.5% CPOE on passes under 15 yards. Josh Allen was pressured on 26% of his dropbacks, 10th lowest out of any QB, but he took 9 hits, 5 sacks, while being sacked on 11% of his dropbacks. That's the 5th most. That tells me that the secondary for the Jets was really freaking good. Mm-hmm. And unless it was underneath and unless it was quick, it was not there for the Buffalo Bills, because we know that Ken Dorsey and the Bills, they like to push the ball down the field. We know that they like to do that, and teams like the Jets and defenses like the Jets, they're not going to let you do that.
Yeah, I mean, that secondary is really good. Sauce, you got freaking Jordan Whitehead, DJ Reed, Michael
Jordan Whitehead
Carter.
had 3 interceptions.
He's never had more than 2 interceptions in a season. He has 3 in opening night for him. How about that, man?
Super Bowl champ Jordan Whitehead.
Tampa Bay Bucks?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
So that's why, like, the Bills, it concerns me a little bit, number one, because they haven't really developed their offensive line. I don't think the offensive line was the reason why Josh Allen got hit so much last night. It was the coverage.
Yeah.
It was the coverage that was really good. But I am concerned about their lack of ability to build the offensive line. Leslie Frazier is no longer the defensive coordinator there, which I know you still have McDermott, who is the head coach. He's a defensive head coach. He's calling the plays now. But Leslie Frazier has been such an advantage to them. Plus, you have the Diggs little drama with Allen throughout the offseason. So that's my worry with the Bills, right? I don't think they're an ascending team.
Yeah.
Versus Dolphins, I think they're ascending. The Bengals, I think, will be fine.
I think they're going to be in that same spot as they were last year. Burrow did this last year. He had the appendectomy right before the season during training camp. They started off a little sluggish, but then they bounced right back. I expect the same out of Cincinnati for that.
I want to touch on the Dolphins.
You touch on the Dolphins. What did you think? What a win versus the Chargers.
Everybody is just open. everybody is open. Mike McDaniel and having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. There's no other team in the NFL that has 2 alpha number 1 wide receivers like that. 2.
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle doesn't get enough credit because Tyreek Hill is on the team. Jalen Waddle is really freaking good. And the attention that both of them give, it does open everyone else up. And the things that Mike McDaniel are doing, where Tua was getting laughed at for being a check down guy. And now, man, his average depth of target is some of the highest in the NFL. The explosive play rate, it's there. I wish, if this were like my list and I didn't feel harshly for being judged on it and putting it out to the public, I would be putting the Dolphins higher because I'm not going to let the impending shadow dark cloud of Tua Tagovailoa's concussion history, I'm not going to let that shadow the judgment of when he is on the field. The Dolphins are a really good team and they have upgraded their defense and they're continuing to upgrade that.
100%. And listen, injuries suck. Injuries happen. You can't. Sometimes these are bad luck injuries. Like you can't control somebody getting hurt. 2 of those for 466 yards. Like we're talking about how good is Tua? Is Tua good? Is Tua not good? Those 466 yards versus the Chargers. It's the most yards they've allowed, passing yards they've allowed ever. Ever. I'm not just saying 2023, 2020s, 2000s, ever. A very impressive performance. Tua gets it done with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That defense gets it done at the end. Gives up 34 points, over 200 rushing yards by the Chargers. That scares me a little bit, but props off to the offense. 9 plays of 20 yards or more. Explosive.
For sure. Any other team you want to touch on?
Chiefs are 1. Chiefs are Chiefs until they prove me otherwise.
Yeah.
Jones is coming back. Kelsey should be back soon. They lose without both those guys, then we can talk about them not being the number 1.
I mean, those are 2 borderline Hall of Famers.
Their number 1 their best defensive player and their second best offensive player.
Yeah.
And they lost by 1 still.
Yeah.
Still impressive in their own right. Got to win the game, though.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for our week 1 version of a little bit of power ranking analyzation. Big word. We'll see you next week. Peace.